One of the most important aspects of your pitch is going to be the question and answer session. After you've done your presentation, comes the Q&A with the judges. Now, that often makes people quite nervous. They can be in control of the presentation, in control of the pitch, and all of a sudden you're throwing it over to the judges. They could ask you anything. How do you prepare for that? Well, of course, you can prepare for anything. And how do you prepare for Q&A? You sit down as a team and you think, what are the most difficult questions they could ask? And really make sure you go into that. There's a very important reason for this. If you've thought what the most difficult questions are and you've prepared an answer, you'll go into that Q&A feeling extremely confident, because you know that whatever happens, even if the worst question is thrown at you, and it probably won't be, you'll be able to deal with it. So, put down a list of likely questions that you're going to be asked, and you'll be able to figure them out. They're fairly obvious. They're going to want more detail about a project. They're going to want an example of where a project worked particularly well, or what you've been doing to push things forward. You can figure out what the most obvious questions are, and therefore you can figure out the answers. But do go into detail. Do go into what the most likely bad question is, the worst question you could be faced with, and get your colleagues, and they will know. They'll know what the most difficult question is. You need to ask yourself, what's the question I really don't want to be asked? And prepare for that. Make sure that you're good to go on that particular question. A couple more techniques. If you get asked a multiple question, firstly this, secondly that, thirdly that, how do you deal with that? You take the most easy part first. So what you do, if a judge asks you a 3-part question or a 4-part question, you say, let me take that second point first, or let me take the third point first, whichever you're most confident to respond to, and deliver your positive response. And then go back to the judge and say, I think you had some other points. Quite often, they'll move on. So by dealing with the part that you can answer in the most effective way, you will avoid having to answer the other parts. And there's another technique as well. It's called neutral paraphrasing. This is a really powerful technique. You can only use it once per session, so let me explain how that works. If, and I hope they don't, but if they ask you a really tough and aggressive question, handle it this way. Firstly, say, let me clarify what you're asking. So you just want to make sure that you understand the question. And when you say, let me clarify what you're asking, you then repeat the question in neutral language. That's where the technique gets its name from, neutral paraphrasing. So if they say to you, for example, this project hasn't really worked, has it? It's been terrible. You say, let me clarify what you're asking. You just want to understand the factors around this project, what the results were, what the objectives were, and so on. And then you answer it positively. Clarify, rephrase, positive response. That's the neutral paraphrasing technique. It will save you when the most difficult question is asked in any circumstance. You can use it in your pitches, and you could use it in any meeting. The only thing is, don't ever try and use it with your spouse. I did, and it didn't work. You can only use it in meetings. But when you use it in a pitch, you'll find it's a very effective technique, as long as you only use it once. So, Q&A, prepare well, make sure you know what the worst question is you could be asked, think about those multiple choice questions, and if you need to, you've got that neutral paraphrasing biscuit in your pocket.